So I'm going to go over this press release, which is coral reefs show resilience to rising temperatures. So when I first read through this or skimmed through this, I was really excited and really happy because one thing that I have been concerned about is how does climate change end up causing irreparable damage to our current ecosystems, at least if it happens way too quickly. So usually when there's change in the climate, oftentimes it can be slow enough for the populations to adapt, and you can have basically mutations or movement of species that can help fill the niches that are left behind from uh, dying areas, right? So there was a lot of concern with coral reefs that were being bleached due to higher temperatures. Now, a lot of this had to do with very acute damage. So things such as El Nino coming in and raising the water temperature significantly, causing these mass bleaching events in the coral reefs, which is basically a result of a lot of the uh, tiny organisms, uh, microscopic organisms that live and thrive within these coral reefs. A lot of them died, and then as they die, they take their color away with them, which is why we call it bleaching. But this is some excellent news that is coming out from a researcher who had been working on this exact or this particular problem for over 15 years. So let's begin. So rising ocean temperatures have devastated coral reefs all over the world, but a recent study in global change biology has found that reefs in the eastern tropical Pacific region may prove to be an exception. So keep in mind, um, this is only talking about one particular region of the ocean. So there is the issue with other regions of the oceans undergoing this bleaching and basically not recovering quickly. But here there might be an example of at least one area that has experienced bleaching due to a particular acute problem, but the bleaching ends up being restored, or what would the word be? The devastation is fixed over the course of a decade. Anyways, the findings which suggest that reefs in this area may have adapted to heat stress could provide insights about the potential for survival of reefs in other parts of the world. The study was published in print in July. So this is excellent though. So even though this isn't talking about all reefs in the world, this is proving, or at least providing evidence that the coral reefs will be able to adapt in a short amount of time in order to repopulate the lost reefs. Anyways, our 44-year study shows that the amount of living coral has not changed in the eastern tropical Pacific region, said James W. Porter, the paper's senior author. Live coral cover has gone up and down in response to El Nino-induced bleaching. So El Nino, just know that this is one of the recurring weather patterns that can show up acutely for a period of time that ends up resulting in unique weather patterns. And during this excessive warming, you end up causing damage and bleaching some of the organisms that are in the ocean. But unlike reefs elsewhere in the Caribbean and the Indo-Pacific, the reefs in the Eastern Tropical Pacific region almost always bounce back, and this is excellent news to know that they are bouncing back from these pretty severe bleaching events. So the study was conducted by an international team of researchers from across the region, led by Dr. Mauricio Romero Torres of the Pontificia Universidad Javeriana and Unidad Nacional para la okay, the National Unit for Disaster Risk Management, or the UNGRD. Sorry, I tried to go through that, but it got a little long. So the group examined coral cover data for the area, which stretches from the Baja California to the Galapagos Islands from 1970 to 2014. So this is a very long study, a 44-year one. And during that time, there were several El Nino events, periods when the equatorial Pacific Ocean reaches unusually high temperatures. This excessive heat can kill the symbiotic algae that inhabit the corals, leading to widespread coral bleaching and death. So you have these algae that are living basically. We probably experience algae growing on surfaces that we don't want them growing on. Well, in the coral reefs, the algae is growing on every surface that it can find, right? That has adequate sunlight. And since these coral reefs, they have so much surface area, it becomes a perfect location for these algae and other symbiotic organisms to fit into the nooks and crannies. And so this excessive heat, unfortunately, is able to kill a lot of those symbiotic organisms. Now, granted, is this something that is supposed to happen? Are we supposed to have these periodic bleachings that help? Uh, what what would the word be? I mean, it may be possible that this destruction rebirth cycle is necessary and beneficial even for the ecosystem as a whole, but it is worrying if it is worrying at least to see the devastation and not see the benefit afterwards. So hopefully with more research we can learn to see if this is actually an important part of coral reef health. Anyways, the researchers found that while loss of coral cover followed the worst of those episodes, in many cases, the eastern tropical Pacific region or reef recovers within 10 to 15 years. So much of my career has been spent documenting coral reef decline that to discover a large area of the tropics where coral reefs are holding their own is very gratifying. So, said Porter, and Professor Emeritus in the University of Georgia Odum School of Ecology. They hypothesized that several key factors allows the eastern tropical Pacific reefs to bounce back. First, the corals in the area are mostly poeciloporids, a type of coral that reproduces at high rates. They also contain species of symbiotic algae that are particularly tolerant to extreme temperatures. Okay. So at least the coral and the symbiotic algae, at least in this particular region, they seem to be very what would the word be? Able. Like they are almost selected for being able to survive in more extreme conditions. Now, granted, this might not translate to other reefs where they have more sensitive algae. Anyways, another important factor may be the ecological memory, meaning that the ETP corals may have become conditioned to heat stress over the years through mechanisms such as genetic adaptation and epigenetic inheritance, whereby parents pass on these survival traits to their offspring. The key to survival for future reefs may not be an immunity to stress, but rather an ability to recover and regrow after stress, said Porter. The ETP reefs show us what this might look like. So, I mean, what is probably a little bit funny, this Porter guy, like his job, right, was to understand and learn about the decline of the reefs and to have the reefs sort of flourish without any human intervention. Seems as though his field of research might actually receive a little bit less funding in the future because he's saying, yeah, these reefs are recovering without me even having to do anything, right? So, I mean, I think it's a little funny because he's probably nearing retirement for working so long in the field, and after he, basically, he's gonna collect all that grant money, and then when he retires, there might not even be as much money left over for whoever takes his position. So anyways, Porter said that the study is also important as an example of the need for maintaining long-term original data, which was crucial to the research. So oftentimes, our data collection is extremely important, not just for your own projects, but maybe when meta-analyses want to be conducted over data that has been collected from hundreds of different research groups, it'll be excellent to have all that data stored in one location. That way someone can comb through it later to make new conclusions. Anyways, as soon as Dr. Romero contacted me, I consulted my original dive logs made when I was a Smithsonian pre-doctoral fellow in Panama in 1970. So yeah, what? Okay, so this guy is probably, this was 50 years ago, right? So this guy has been working for 50 years. So if he was a postdoctoral fellow at that time, he was probably 26. So yeah, this person is, in his late 70s, early 80s probably. Anyways, I realized immediately that my handwritten field notes contained everything needed to anchor the study with the oldest data used in this long-term survey. Particularly in a changing world, we need to archive and store original data carefully, he said. Knowing what the world looked like in the past may be the best way to set restoration goals in the future. This research teaches the relevance of doing science with fair standards, or findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable so that other researchers in the region can continue to work and estimate the effects of the next El Nino phenomenon on the Eastern Tropical Pacific region, said Romero. So this is excellent. I like seeing research that digs back into old notes and sort of compares it to what we are getting at now. Because when there's a lot of short-term data collection, or when basically when politics start getting involved in the scientific process, it becomes kind of difficult to argue, yeah, my research has not been biased or hasn't been blinded by the fact that the fact that my livelihood depends on it, or the fact that I want to achieve a particular goal, or I want to push out a particular patent, right? So what is nice is when we have this research from the past, where yes, maybe there were biases at the time, but you can't say that the biases are going to be directly attributed to today, right, or to today's standards. So what is nice is when there's these long research studies that have gone through multiple bouts of different, what would the word be, political climates, if you will. If it transcends all those political climates and it transcends, the, what is hot or what is meme worthy or what is viral in the scientific community at that time, basically you can smooth out all those biases, right? Or you can account for those biases more easily because this is data that you collected before the next new thing hit the scientific community. So yeah, I am very happy to see this, and hopefully this proves to be beneficial to help with the restoration of other coral reefs in the future. So with that, thanks for watching, and hopefully I will see you tomorrow.